Video store memories next on Retro Serial. Well, hey everyone, welcome to Retro Serial. I'm your host, Ian C. I'm glad you could be joining us for this podcast. On this podcast today, I am going to be sharing with you some of my all-time favorite video store memories. Now, let me just warn you that this is the podcast edition. If you're a devotee to the program, you know that I run both a podcast and a YouTube channel. But as a podcast, these tend to be a little bit longer in format. It's more designed for people who are listening rather than people who are watching. But once again, I don't care how you got here. I'm just glad you're here, whether you're watching this on video or whether you're listening to this on a podcast. But the reason why I wanted to talk about video store memories is that I recently watched a show called The Last Blockbuster. It's a really great documentary and it's on Netflix, and I really highly encourage you to check it out. If you have not yet seen it, please go and see it. It's really good. And I was inspired after watching that to do a new segment on the program where I asked my guests, at least for the very first time that they're on the program, to share a video store memory. Now, we've only had the opportunity to do this once, and I'm going to have some guests come back, some reoccurring guests, but these are guests who have never shared a video store memory as of yet, but it's going to be a new segment. So all of them, when they come back, if they are inclined enough, or I can be persuasive enough to bring them back upon the show, I will ask them to share a video store memory. But in light of that, what I decided to do was kind of share a handful of video store memories of my own. Some experiences that I had, because this was so integral to Generation X. It was so integral to growing up. We were there, people who are of Generation X were there at the dawn of the video store and at the closing of the video store, and it was a big part of our lives. Now, it wasn't just a big part of our lives. I do understand that it was a big part of other generations' lives as well. There are some millennials who kind of remember in early childhood getting videos or watching VHS tapes. And of course, boomers were there at the advent of the video store and at the close of the video store as well. However, they were already more or less adults when that format happened, when that situation arose. But for us who are Generation Xers, especially someone like me who's like squarely in Generation X, we were there when it happened. We were young when it happened, and it bled all the way into our adult life, and then it went away, and it is really a thing of a bygone era, unless for some reason it's brought back or for something like that. So in light of all of that, I wanted to share a few of my video store memories with you for this episode. However, before we do that, before I get into my stories, I would encourage you to please go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel. It would just mean the world to me if you could do those two things. If you've already liked it and you've already subscribed and you want to do something else, you can share this on your favorite social media, post it on Twitter, post it on Facebook, post it on whatever platform that you connect with the most, and it lets people know about what we're doing here and all the great content we have about growing up Generation X. If you want to go to a couple extra steps, you can hit that bell notification. That lets you know when these videos are available so you don't miss anything that's coming out. And another thing you can do, finally, if you want to part with some of your hard-earned cash to see this YouTube and podcast mogul empire just grow like crazy, go ahead and click the link below and donate to my Buy Me a Coffee page. Buy Me a Coffee is akin to Patreon. It's just a place where you can leave a few bucks to show us some thanks for the show, free up some of my time. I mean, I will be honest with you, my future is very much wrapped up in media right now. I would really like to move full-time into media and full-time into doing YouTube and the podcast, and that's where you come in to help, but only if you like the show. Only if you like the show. If you're listening to this on podcast, please give me a rating and an honest review. Goes a long way. And I do hope you like it. And if there's anything that you don't like or any improvements you think I should make to the show, by all means, get in contact with me. It's really easy to get in contact with me. My email is cereal4dinner12. It's cereal, the number 4, and then dinner12. And it's cereal as in the cereal you eat, and at gmail.com. And if you go to the YouTube page and you click on the About section, you can find that link to my email there. And also, one other thing before we get to these memories, if you're out there and you want to talk about nostalgia, and if you have like a podcast or you have a YouTube page, I don't care how big or how small it is or anything like that. If you've got a YouTube page or you've got a podcast and you want to talk with me about and be on this program, or vice versa, have me on your program, I'm totally open to that. I would love to see that. A lot of people, I think, don't understand that when you have a YouTube page and you have a podcast, that you're just booked on guests and things like that. That's really not the case. We're always looking for people to be on the podcast, to be on the show. So if that's you, please get a hold of me. Would love to talk with you. All right, and with that, let's get to some of these. I almost said bookstore. Let's get to some of these video store memories. So obviously, I can't share every memory that I have with you here on the program. I want to share some of the more intriguing ones and some of the more interesting ones. And it really all goes back to, in my mind, around 1983, 1984, when I was about 9 years old. That was the very first time that I remember a video store opening up in my town. Now, at that time, I lived in a super small town, and I do remember that by the time I moved into the town and by the time I left the town, there were only 2 video stores, and neither one of them were chain video stores. Neither one of them were Blockbusters. I moved into that town in about 1980, 1981, real super small town, and then I left that town, about 1988, as I recall. And by the time 1988 rolled around, video stores were a thing, but there were only 2 video stores. And the 2 video stores weren't even the original ones that opened up. One of them opened and closed, and then another one opened up. And then there were 2. So like I said, there were 2 of them. So my earliest memory of a video store experience worthy of note was 1983 or 4, like I said, and I was 9 years old. The video store was right next to a hair cutting place, a hair salon. It wasn't actually a hair salon, it was a training place for a hair salon. And so you could get cheap haircuts there because they were all students who were practicing cutting hair. Well, my mother dropped me off to get my hair cut, and she said she was going to be back. Now, this wasn't unusual for her to do. She would drop me off somewhere and then come back in an hour or something like that. And I was supposed to wait for her like a good kid waits for her, right? I mean, I'm supposed to wait for her. She's supposed to drive by and pick me up. I decided to, as I was outside right next to this little kind of front mall here, so you had like, the hair cutting place here, and right next to it was, lo and behold, a video store. Well, for my 9-year-old mind, that was just too much. I mean, really, it was too much temptation. It might as well have been a candy store, okay? Might as well have been a candy store. I peeked my head in, and then it's just like, I didn't just peek my head in. I went into the video store, looked around. And in my mind, I was thinking, well, I can hear cars drive up. So, and I can look out the window and I can see, people who are there. I can see people coming in and out of the hair salon next door. So, it's real easy. I will just look at these videos. I'll pay attention to the door. I'll look out. I'll make sure I make sure that I can see my mom. I'll make sure I'm paying attention. And so I did that for a little while, where you're looking at a video and then you look outside and you look for a video and you look out the door, and I'm paying really good attention. However, unfortunately, as you might recall, a lot of these video stores had a movie that was playing. Okay. It had some movie that was playing. And I got wrapped up in this movie, and I do not know how much time had elapsed before I realized that I probably missed my mom. And I'm 9 years old, and it's the 80s. And if you don't know anything, I mean, this is where kidnapping is on the rise. And of course, it's just one of those things. You're going to get kidnapped. There's nothing we can do about it. I don't know if you've seen the recent Nate Bargatze special, but just to digress from what I'm saying for just a second, he has a bit in there about being kidnapped. It was almost like parents were saying, look, there's nothing we can do about it. Just at some point in your life, you're going to get kidnapped. And I think parents were thinking this, and I think I was thinking this too. And I couldn't imagine the terror that my mom went through when she couldn't find me. Now, I don't know for the life of me why she didn't check the video store next door. But I went out, and I mean, by this time I knew I had missed her. The time had elapsed. I just got all wrapped up in these video stores. And this was a time, obviously, before cell phones. She couldn't call me. She couldn't text me. We were just looking. Now, the town that I lived in, it was, like I said, it was super small. So, like, everything was basically in walking distance. There were a few places that weren't in walking distance, but all the main places were really in walking distance from almost anybody's home. So I started walking, and I believe the first place that I walked to was my house. But I got there, Mom wasn't there, and so I walked to a friend's house. Long story short, or long story longer, I wasn't kidnapped. We finally met. I'm like, yeah. And I haven't seen my mom since. So if you've seen her, will you please let her know that I'm okay. So no, so that was my first video store experience. My first video store experience was getting wrapped up in a movie in the bright lights of the video store. And my mom probably thinking I was kidnapped and dead. Funny story. Okay, so let's move on to the second. That's the earliest memory that I have of a video store experience. Now, that's my earliest memory. So here's my challenge for you. If you want to leave this in the comment section below, what is your earliest video store memory? That's my earliest one, as actually being in the store. Okay, so I'm going to share a few more from that era, but I want to hear about your earliest one. Second video store story, or second story surrounding videos. Now, we were not what you would call a rich family. We did not come from rich stock. We were kind of more well-to-do than I actually knew as a kid. But that's because we kind of had times in our life, because my mom was a single mom and she was a working mom. But she had worked her way through school to become a nurse. So there were times in our lives where we did have a significant amount of cash. But for the most part, we were poor. Like, we were the last people I remember to get a microwave. And we were certainly the last people to get a VHS player. And of course, during those early years of video stores, no one was really sure which format was going to win out. Was it going to be the Betamax, or was it going to be the VHS player? But we were the last to get it. So that means when we rented videos, we also rented the video player. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but you used to be able to rent the video player as well. You used to be able to rent, and early days, you could rent a VHS player or a Betamax player. And in some of these stores, there were videos, and there were VHSs and Betamax, and you could kind of choose both. So one night, and this was a little bit later on, I was probably maybe 11, somewhere around there. I was definitely after 10, because this revolves around my stepdad at the time. And my mom remarried when I was 10 years old. So it was definitely after 10. So we had rented 3 movies. Now, I don't remember the other 2 movies, but I do remember the one movie that we did rent was Legal Eagles. And you'll understand why I remember that more than anything as this story unfolds. So here's the story. We rent a video player, and we rent 3 VHSs. We rent VHS that my mom picked, a VHS that my stepdad picked, and a VHS that I picked. And I don't remember the one my mom picked, and I don't remember the one I picked, okay? But when we got home, we watched the one that kind of my mom picked, and it was for the whole family kind of a thing. So I watched that. Then I went to bed. Then what was supposed to happen was they were going to watch Legal Eagles, which of course it was bedtime for me, but also at the same time, I didn't have any desire to see Legal Eagles whatsoever. No desire at all. And so I went to bed, but apparently they didn't finish the movie. They didn't finish Legal Eagles. And I was going to watch my show the next day, but I had no idea that they didn't finish that show. I'm saying Legal Eagles so much, you're going to go out and buy it now, or you're going to go download it or something like that. It's like, Legal Eagles, that's a good movie. Think I'm going to go out and get that show. No. Okay. So I don't know that they didn't finish it. So I'm thinking that I have kind of all day the next day to watch it, or whatever, or time to watch it. I think maybe I was at school, as a matter of fact, but I thought I had, time after school to watch it, to watch my video, not Legal Eagles. My video, which I don't remember what it was. So I come home from school, as I recall, and I put in my video. And I'm watching it. I'm in the middle of it. My stepdad comes home. He, ejects the tape, my tape that I'm watching, and finishes Legal Eagles. He then proceeds to unhook the VCR, wrap everything up, and take it all back to the video store. So I didn't get to watch my show. I was so steaming mad, because it had to be back at like 4 o'clock or something like that, 5 o'clock. There was a cutoff time when everything had to be back. Otherwise, you were charged for the next day. So I was really upset about that. And I was because I thought, okay, I wasn't happy in the first place that, he didn't let me finish my show. And I wasn't happy in the second place that I had to sit through the last half of this show that I didn't want to see in the first place. And then third of all, he didn't let me finish my show. He just, as soon as he was done, everything got wrapped up, and he took it all back to the video store. So that's one of my negative video store memories. And now I have a question for you. What's one of your negative video store memories? Let me know in the comments section below. Okay, here we go. Story number 3. They used to have videos playing in video stores, especially during the early days. Now, they did this a lot. They would have a movie that was playing, but when you started getting into the blockbuster era and you started getting into the Hollywood movie era, the Hollywood video era, what they would do is not just have a movie playing, but they would have like screens up around and they would play clips of movies, advertisements for movies. So you'd get to see part of it. And then, then it would say, and rent now, or this is coming out then. It was kind of more of an advertising things where you had several TVs up. But when you had originally the very first video stores, at least the ones that I was familiar with, what you had was you had a TV in there and a VCR attached to it, and them playing videos all day. The people who worked there would just play videos all day. Well, I took advantage of that quite a bit. I would go to a video store and I would ask if I could watch a video. By this time, I'm probably around 13, 14. I think I stopped by 14 for sure. I stopped by 14. Hopefully, let's hope so. I had no filter as a kid. You got to understand this, okay? I basically grew up with a single mom and no brothers and sisters. Single mom, and I'm a single kid, and no brothers and sisters. So I didn't really understand like that some of the stuff that I did or asked for might have been inappropriate. Okay. Now, I wasn't rude. My mom raised me with great manners. As a matter of fact, everybody said I had great manners, but I didn't have any lines, so to speak, that you have when you have a mother and a father and you have siblings. So when you go out and a lot of times people tell me, like, their older brother would tell them, don't do that. That's stupid. That's dumb. Okay. So I didn't have any of that. And I've told you stories before about like how I would walk around with a wooden sword, even at like 12 years old, 13 years old. I'd walk around and play Conan the Barbarian, or I would do breakdancing in the streets. I didn't have anybody to stop me and say, hey, don't do that. That's stupid. And I love my mother. I mean, I really do. I love my mother, but the sun rose and set over my shoulders because I was her only kid. And, nothing I did was wrong. Everything that I had, every idea that I had was golden. It was just golden. I mean, everything that I said or did or idea I had, it was the best idea she'd ever heard. So she was a great mom, but I just had no filter. So I would go into these video stores and I would be like, hey, can we watch this movie? And they were probably taken aback, like, what? Okay, I guess, So I would literally watch movies at the video store. They would plug in the movie and they would watch it. Now, I remember one time I went in with a friend of mine, and because the rule was you could only watch a PG movie, and I knew this rule. Now, I don't know how many videos I had watched. I know that I saw Thriller a number of times because I was a huge Michael Jackson fan, especially up until the time I was 12 when I discovered heavy metal, but I was a huge Michael Jackson fan. So I watched Thriller at the video store probably 3 or 4 times. But I would go into the video stores and I would kind of time it because I could kind of tell when somebody was mad or you can kind of tell when you've overstayed your welcome or whatever. And so I would okay, I know this person's going to work this time, so I'll go in when they're not there. Or, I would kind of time it out a little bit. I had a little routine going for me where I knew, who was there. And then luckily for video stores, there's high turnover. And so there's always new people in there. One time, a very upsetting time, I was in there with one of my best friends. His name is Tom. And I went into the video store and I really wanted to see The Last Dragon. I mean, I was a huge Last Dragon fan. Loved that movie. I thought it was a great movie. Again, as devotees to this program will know, I'm a huge martial arts fan. I've been doing martial arts for a long time. Last Dragon, Karate Kid, those movies kind of were really huge influences on me, but I didn't own a copy, so I went in and I asked, I said, and she said, oh no. And I was with a friend of mine, and the girl at the video counter said, we can't. I asked, can we watch this show? And she said, oh, she thought it was rated R. Well, it wasn't. It was rated PG-13. Well, I wasn't going to let the 13 on. I was just like, oh no, it's PG. So I said, oh no, it's PG. And my friend next to me said, it's PG-13. Like, good night, man. Did you have to offer that piece of information? Really? I mean, I was going to have a good time watching the show. We were going to have a good time watching the show. And I said, oh no, it's PG. Half truth, right? Not the whole truth. But then my idiot friend offers this girl the rest of the information, which is that it is PG-13. And the lady who was running the video store said, no thanks. You can't you can't watch this video. So we were not able to watch that video that time. Now, did you watch it? I don't know. I might be the only one in the universe who actually watched videos during that time. So we're, I actually went to the store and sat down in front of the TV and watched a video. If you've had any type of similar experiences, I would love to know. Let me know. Thanks a lot. Now to our next story. Okay, this next story revolves around the fact that I had a job at the video store unofficially. I had an unofficial job at a video store. I never got the job. Let me explain. Now, remember how I said that I really didn't have a filter? Now, by this time, I was 15. Okay, so we had moved out of the town we were in, and there was a video store kind of within walking distance of this new town that we were in. There was a divorce that we went through, that my mom went through, and we were living in a new town, fresh start kind of a thing. It was a town that was not too far away from the previous town we lived in, but it was a bigger town, a bigger city, and had a little bit more to offer. Well, this town also had a video store in it. And this video store was a combination of guitars and videos. Okay, so the guy who owned it was a musician, but he sold guitars, but he also rented videos. And I was, to a degree, a pest to this guy. I was always there. I was always playing his guitars. Now, I did rent videos too. Like, by that time, I was renting videos. By that time, we had a VCR. But it was later. I mean, it was a lot later. We didn't get a VCR until this time. So we didn't get a VCR until, like a VCR that we owned until like 1989. Somewhere around there. 88 at the earliest, 89 was about that, was about this time. And I remember I was 15 to 16 years old during this time. And I would hang out at this video store. Now, the owner was an interesting guy. I wasn't, I wasn't the easiest kid to get along with. As I said before, I didn't have a lot of filters, but I knew he was looking for someone to work for him. And I wanted to work there. I mean, I really wanted to work there. I mean, I wanted to work around movies and around guitars. But I was told that he wasn't that I was not what he was looking for in an employee. A little bit understandably, I could imagine. But I just wasn't what he was looking for in an employee. And so what was happening, why I kind of worked there, was I would stick around at the store, like when I got home from school, until the store closed, like kind of in that. There's also a convenience store that was closed. So I would go to the convenience store, pick something up to eat, come back, hang out there, talk to people. I got to know some of the people who worked there behind the counter. One of them became kind of a good friend of mine for a while. He was a drummer. Now, the owner of the store would go home, and he would, then you had the person who closed, who worked closing. Well, there was a stretch of time there where this kid who worked closing would allow me to do certain duties at the video store. So I was just like, man, and the rumor was that he was going to be leaving soon, and I wanted to be his replacement. So I would get videos. I would rebox them. I'd make sure they were rewound. I would take them and put them back on the shelf. I helped customers. All the while, I wasn't being paid at all. I mean, basically, this kid was an older kid too. He was basically, I think, taking advantage of me. I mean, we were friends and all that stuff, and he knew that I wanted this job after he left. But, I mean, he let me do stuff. He let me run the cash register. He would step outside to have a cigarette. I'd watch the store, and I learned to run the whole store. Only doing all kinds of stuff, never getting paid. He'd go out for smoke 3 or 4 times during his shift, and I'd be like, yeah, I'll stay, I'll watch the store, help customers, to the point that I think probably there were some customers who thought I was that I was an employee there. People probably thought that I was an employee there, because I by the time this kid left, I knew how to run the store. But I didn't get the job. Yeah, I learned it all, worked there for free, but I didn't get the job. And one of the things is I'm sure that this guy did not tell the owner that basically he was using me as a slave. I'm sure that didn't come up in their conversation. He did say that he put in a good word for me, but they just said that they were going to pass on me for whatever reason. I have no idea why. But anyway, they said that they were going to pass on me. But I ran a video store and worked at a video store without getting paid at all. How's that for a story? It's a little embarrassing on my end. Well, unfortunately, this next story is about how I helped put a locally run video store, out of business. Okay. And it's sad. It's a sad story, and I still feel bad about it to this day. Look, I'm not the only one who did it, but it was my mindset and a lot of people who were like me who did it. Now, in the town that I live in now, it grew, and eventually we did have a Blockbuster, and I was a member of Blockbuster, had rented videos at Blockbuster, but we also had Hollywood Video. I don't know if people out there remember Hollywood Video or not, but Hollywood Video was another big chain video store outlet. And I went to Hollywood Video, and the reason why I went to Hollywood Video is just closer to where I live. The Blockbuster was on the other side of town, and the Hollywood Video was closer. So I'm closer to Hollywood Video. That's really the only thing that made the decision as to why I went to Hollywood Video instead of Blockbuster. But let me just preface this by saying, before Hollywood Video came into town, another independent local video store opened up in a strip mall near me. And it was actually even closer than the Hollywood Video. Like, this strip mall was really super close to where I lived. And I went in there all the time. Big movie fan. And by this time, I'm an adult. I'm in my 20s by this time. And I frequented that video store often. I mean, that was the video store. He had a really good selection. He was a really nice guy, locally owned. And he, good prices, everything was great. I loved that video store. Well, what happened was Hollywood Video opened up. Hollywood Video opened up about 3 blocks from where he was, not too far. And at the very beginning, I was just like, oh, Hollywood Video, cool. And I go to Hollywood Video, set up an account. It's much bigger. They've got a much better selection. And I just start shopping there. It was almost an eclipse of this locally owned video store. I felt bad for him after this because I didn't really realize that I was hurting a local business, but I was. But it wasn't on purpose. It was just a matter of, oh, there's another video store. It's got more videos. Let's go there. But I went there so often that after a while, I started to remember, oh, you know what? I haven't visited that guy's store for a while. I should go do that. And then I would go to Hollywood Video. Then I'd pass that store and go, oh, you know what? I need to go visit that guy's store for a while. He's probably hurting for business. And then I'd go to Hollywood Video and, bigger selection, all that stuff. It was great. And then I would go by that guy's store and I need to go visit that guy's store. He's probably hurting for business. Until one of those days, that store closed down and went out of business. And I don't know the exact story of why it went out of business, but it's not hard to imagine that being only 3 blocks away from a Hollywood Video and knowing my story of how I simply neglected that guy's video store for the bigger, the brighter videos, how that my story could be the story of most all the customers that he had. And I'm sure that that's what happened. I mean, I don't know for sure, but it just seems plausible given what I've already said. And he went out of business, and I feel bad about it. And I felt bad about it, and I still feel bad about it to this day. I look back on that, and it wasn't purposeful. But it was also neglect. It was a matter of, oh, I need to go do that one of these days. And there's a saying that goes around a lot that means a lot to me. That's actually kind of, that has kind of motivated me in my life for certain things. And that's this: almost doing something is as good as not doing something. Let that sink in for just a minute. Almost doing something is as good as not doing something. So somebody says, or I was going to do this. I was going to make that phone call. Oh, I was going to go visit that guy's store. Oh, I was going to go do this. Almost doing something in the end is as good as not doing it. And that's really stuck with me. And like I said, I still feel bad to this day that guy went out of business. Now, eventually he would have gone out of business anyway, because we all download and downstream and all that stuff. And video stores are really, quite honestly, a thing of the past. But unfortunately, I had a part in his video store demise, which I'm sure was really sad for him and for his family. Okay, let's get to our final story. Now, I've got a plethora of stories out there that I could share with you about video stores, as you, I'm sure, could share with me. But I'm going to share one more video store story with you, and that is how I extended the life of my video collection and VHS collection and VHS watching, not just video, but VHS watching, well past its expiration date, well past where everybody else was buying DVDs, and even well into the DVD, Blu-ray, red controversy. Like I said, I am a technological loser. I don't know a lot about technology. I'm always the last to do things. Like I said before, we're the last person to get a VCR. It took us forever to get a DVD player, and then even after that, it took us forever to get a Blu-ray player. I listened to tapes well into the CD era. As a matter of fact, I stopped buying tapes only shortly before I stopped buying CDs. I'm late with everything. With technology, I'm just late. Well, Hollywood Video was switching their format over to exclusively DVDs. This before they went under. And I didn't know anything about it. I was just like, oh yeah, DVDs. But this was a time where they still had VHSs on the shelf and DVDs side by side. But VHSs were being sold out, were being, phased out, not sold out, phased out. So I went into the local Hollywood Video, which I did on, I was in there at least two nights a week, was in Hollywood Video. And the person who I knew at the counter, one of them that I knew at the counter, said, "Hey man, you're here just in time. We are selling our VHSs. I mean, we are selling them. And it's like 5 VHSs for one." And it is not registering in my stupid head that VHSs are going to be a thing of the past, and they're doing this so they can make room for their DVDs. I am thinking I hit the gold mine. I'm like, VHS is wonderful. Because I'm still even at this time listening to cassette tapes. I buy a ton of VHS tapes. I mean, I just buy a ton of VHS tapes. And to give you an idea of when this is, it was after Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon came out, but still when you can buy it on VHS. So I don't remember what it was, because that was one of them that I bought, was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. But I just bought a ton of them. Now, maybe later they'll become collector's items and I'll be happy that I bought them. But looking back at it now, I'm like, I'm an idiot. Why in the world would I buy all that? I mean, it was a steal, of course, because they were moving into DVDs. And eventually for us, we don't watch VHSs at all anymore. So, for us, it was just buying a bunch of stuff that we're going to keep around, or we're going to sell at a yard sale, or we're going to, give to a pawn shop. But I bought a bunch of VHSs right when VHSs were being a thing of the past. It was right when, on the cusp of, hey, we've had VHSs and DVDs, and now we're getting rid of all our VHSs. And isn't it your lucky day that you came into the store right at this time so that you can buy all these? And I bought a slew of them. Man. I was so happy. And now I'm not so happy anymore. But I might be happy later, because it might be, they still work. They still work. So I might be happy later that I made that purchase. But I was happy then, and I'm not happy about it now, but I might be happy about it later. So final question for you. When was the last time you watched a VHS? Do you remember when the last time you watched a VHS was? I don't know. Do you still watch DVDs? I still watch DVDs occasionally. I have a lot of DVDs, but honestly, I haven't watched them in a while. I've just been streaming everything. And if it's something I have on DVD and I can't stream it, I end up not watching it. I just go, I'd rather just stream something. I mean, who wants to get up and go through all that work of opening the DVD player and putting it in the thing? And, and then now we just recently got a new TV, and I have not hooked up my old Blu-ray player to the TV. So the next time I actually want to watch a DVD, I would have to rehook that up, which is probably not going to happen. All right. So they're my stories, for better, for worse. There are at least a handful of them there that I think are interesting. But I want to know what you think. Tell me, which story you like the most, which story you like the least. Tell me what story you have. I want to hear these things. Leave it in the comments section below. So that's the show for today. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Retro Serial. If you're listening to this on podcast, I want to thank you so much for listening to this on podcast. Please leave me a review and leave me a rating. It super helps in the algorithms. It helps, iTunes and Spotify promote this. And it would mean a great deal to me if you did that. Also, if you are listening to this on audio only, please understand I got a YouTube page as well. And on the YouTube page, I do a lot more stuff on there, a lot more stuff that's more amenable to visual and audio. But again, if you're just listening to this on audio, good for you. I'm glad you're here. I don't care how you're listening to this, just that you're listening to this means the world to me. But please, if you're watching this on YouTube, it would mean a great deal to me if you would subscribe to my channel, like it, push the bell notification, share it on your favorite social media. If you want to part with your hard-earned cash, hit the link in the description below and it'll take you to the Buy Me a Coffee page, and you can donate some money to what's going on here on the show. Also, again, let me just remind you that if you're out there and you want to be a part of this program, you want to be on this program, I'm super approachable. Get a hold of me, get in contact with me, especially if you have another podcast or a YouTube page, or if you have a podcast and YouTube page and you want me on your program and we can just chat it up, just chew the fat about music, about TV shows, about movies, about all kinds of stuff. Hit me up. I'm always open to that kind of thing. All right, folks, take care, and we will see you again on another episode of Retro Serial.